Hey YouTube, this is Kevin Bowen of Bowen Small Engine, and I'm just continuing off my prior video, guys, in regards to the 3.5 horsepower cool bore Briggs and Stratton 70s model engine, if you will. I'm going to tell you guys that I unfortunately do not have an impact powerful enough to actually take off the 5 or 15/16 nut that's underneath this fan debris shield. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just use the small dewalt that I have to remove the debris shield from the flywheel. And of course I'll have to use a wrench to take off that particular nut that I've been oiling. And all I done, guys, is when this was on here, just took some oil, stuck it in, oiled it. It's been about 20 minutes, I'm estimating, since I've done this, so hopefully this will actually turn. I do not know. I do have a monkey wrench underneath the bottom on the crankshaft. Unfortunately, you guys aren't going to be able to see that, but I do have that. The reason that I'm pulling the flywheel is because this particular coil has points and condenser. I could upgrade it to a mag kit, or a magnetron ignition, if you will, but I'm choosing or electing to actually keep it original. I'm trying to do this with a bare minimum amount of tools. Okay, that way the average Joe can see that, you know, this is possible. Howsoever, I want to advocate one small thing to you guys. When it comes to valves, don't believe all the hype and the bullshit about lapping valves. Okay, lapping valves is a patch job unless you have actually ground the valves and ground the seats, or cut the seats and cut the valves. Okay, there are a lot of people on YouTube that will mislead you, and they will tell you that it's perfectly fine, you know, to lap valves, that it'll work just fine. And guys, I'm going to tell you, more often than not, that's complete bullshit. Okay, honestly, if you're going to do it right, you need to actually grind the valves and grind the seats. Okay, take it to a machine shop if you have to. Get them to do it if you do not have a valve grinder. It's imperative, trust me. Okay, anything less than doing that, you're just doing a patch job, and you're going to run into problems later. I mean, it's just that simple. So I just want to note that to you guys. You will be seeing me lap the valves in, but I'm going to show you prior to lapping that I have actually ground the valves and ground the seats. Okay? Or I'll do you guys one better than that. I won't grind the seats. I've actually got a valve seat cutter, and I will cut the seats and I will grind the valves. Okay? So you guys can see that you can actually use both methods. Okay? And that they both work. The key to it is to actually know the right angles for your valves. Okay? But I'll get to that later in probably the next video. So without further ado and the rambling on, I apologize, guys. I'm going to go ahead and try to pull this nut so I can have access to the flywheel, pull it off, and then hopefully I'll have access to the points and condenser. I think it's tight. There we go. Now I'm going to show you guys a method that is a little off-putting to most people, but I want you guys to know that it does work. You don't have to be scared out of your mind when it comes to hitting the top of these crankshafts. They tell you guys that, but it's bullshit. What you really need to do and keep in mind, though, is you want some kind of brass hammer something that's going to put a lot of shock through the crankshaft. Okay? And luckily enough, I have such a hammer. All you really have to do, just small crowbar, pry up on it, and as you guys can see, no harm, no foul. So let's see what kind of shape points the condenser is in. The controls, guys, actually just fell off from the other video, so I'm not missing anything there, guys. Alright. See what we got here. By the way these screws are coming out, guys, I want to note something. I have not been in this engine. I know there'll be a lot of people think that I have. I think what's potentially happened is the homeowner that had this had tried to make repairs himself, and in doing so he didn't realize that he had a valve issue, and I think he addressed everything else but that. Okay? So I don't know for sure. As you guys can see, I've never been in it, but those screws were extremely loose. And by the looks of things, I think these points and condensers are actually in great shape, or condenser, shall I say, is in great shape. So that was the monkey wrench I mentioned. Yeah, he didn't properly set them. Whoever had done this didn't properly set them. So it doesn't surprise me this thing didn't run. So that's something that'll have to be addressed, guys. I'm going to go ahead at this point and I think I will potentially turn the table. You'll see that this comes in really handy when it comes to having access to the valve chamber. My cousin's pretty clever, guys. What can I say? Especially when we get together. We made this table and I absolutely love it. It comes in very, very handy for these Briggs engines. Basically any engine really for that matter, but typically I just I put the 3 horsepowers on here. I can potentially put bigger engines, of course, and drill the holes out for them and mount them as well, but I do a lot of these 3 horsepowers, 3.5, all the way up to 4 horsepower actually. I have, of course, done quantrums, but you know, like I said, I'm typically doing a lot of these 3.5 horsepowers because I've had such good luck with them, and people, honestly, they know the qualities there, okay? Unlike the pieces of shit that you buy nowadays, okay, from Briggs. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this off. That, of course, is just a breather. And I'm going to show you guys a trick. You don't have to have fancy tools to pull these valves out. Now, you do actually have to have the tool to put them back in, alright? But I'm going to show you a very fast and effective way to get these out. guys are going to be shocked. This is all you need. All you do, guys, is rotate the keeper until you find the slot or the groove and push down with a screwdriver. It's actually that simple. I'll do the exact same thing on this side. So don't be fooled by all the hype about using special tools and all this other crap. You really don't need it. These gaskets, of course, will be replaced. But I just want to show you guys that all this hype about needing special tools and all this crap, you really don't have to have it. In my situation, though, I really needed to turn the keeper upward, and then it'll come off. This one's been a little stubborn. So just letting you know, it's normally not this hard. And there we go. But as you guys can see, now I have access to the valves. This, of course, is the exhaust valve, and as you can clearly see, it is in desperate need of grinding. I, of course, will be cleaning this valve up as well as the intake and checking it to see if I actually need to put in a valve guide, okay, or bushing, if you will, especially on the exhaust. Typically, the exhaust take a crap on these older engines, and that's basically why they develop a problem with compression. So I will be checking that, okay. I do have a go, no go gauge, okay, so I will be checking that. I'm also going to potentially, I haven't really decided just yet, but potentially pull the oil sump, see what the connector rod and everything looks like. Potentially, okay. Haven't really completely committed myself to that just yet, but I may potentially do it just to be thorough and for you guys to actually see the internals of this engine and why I'm so fond of them. As I had mentioned, you know, basically it's because of the internal parts. They're a hell of a lot better than the shit that you're going to buy nowadays. Reason being is most of the shit nowadays you get a hold up, guys, it's going to look like this. The gear is fucking plastic, and I apologize for saying that, but guys, I cannot stress to you how much I despise the quality of the newer Briggs and Stratton engines. But as you can see, this tiny little power takeoff gear, the only thing that's retaining it is this little tiny protrusion, okay, that's just cut away in the crankshaft. It's complete bullshit. And the cams are plastic as well. I have one floating around here somewhere in the floor on another engine, okay, but that's just a good example as to why I love these engines over these modern pieces of shit that you guys will actually buy nowadays. The longevity will always be with these engines if they're properly maintained, and I want to stress that to you guys. Alright, so as I said, I'm going to go ahead and pull these valves out. I'm going to grind them. I'm going to use a valve seat cutter to cut the seats, even though I do have the valve seat grinder. I'm doing this, guys, to show you that you can use a valve seat cutter in conjunction with a valve seat grinder and you will have perfect results. Okay, there are some people that think that you need to have, you know, the valve seat cutters as well as the valve seat cutter for the valves, okay? And that's just not necessarily the truth, okay? You can actually use a valve grinder to grind the valves, and then potentially use the valve seat cutter to cut the seats, okay? And it works just fine. And I will also show you guys how to properly lap the valves in after they've been ground, because like I said, I see that on numerous videos on YouTube, and it absolutely drives me crazy, okay? Because it is not the proper way, okay? So I want to stress that to you guys. If you think that you're going to get one of these engines and you're just going to lap the valves and that's going to be sufficient, you may get lucky, okay? You may actually have your engine last a little while, okay? But I guarantee you, you will run into an issue long term, okay? So keep that in mind. Take your valves to a reputable dealer that has a valve grinder, grind the valves, or purchase new valves. And of course, cut the seats before you put the valves in and lap them. Can't stress that enough. And now I'm just going to pull the spring and the keeper out. This of course is for the exhaust, and you guys can actually see what I was trying to do. With the screwdriver, there's a groove. Hopefully I can get that in camera. There's a groove that I was fighting, and all you have to do is push it over with the screwdriver, as you guys can see, and the valve will basically pop right out. So just letting you know, you don't actually need the tool to remove the valves, but you will need the tool to reinstall them. This of course is the intake valve. It's in really nice shape. I'm going to be able to grind that no problem. Now guys, at this point I'm going to turn the table back up to where you guys can actually see potentially what I'm going to do with the coil and the points and condenser. I'm going to remove them for now, because honestly I've decided that I'm going to completely gut this engine. I may or may not, depending on how bad the actual rings are, and well, potentially the bore, okay? I'll check the ring end gap to see if I actually need to put new rings in or not. Tube. Governor vane. And yes guys, this is actually called a governor vane. For you those that don't know, some people call it a fan. It's actually the vane. Hopefully this coil is salvageable. Like I said guys, I really don't know what the homeowner had done to it before me receiving it. All this is new to me, so naturally, you know, I'm going through this process, and you guys are finding the reveals basically as I encounter them. I will show you guys a little trick upon how you can actually potentially clean the vowels before you grind them. There'll be a lot of people say, oh my God, you shouldn't do that. You're going to destroy the stems. Bullshit, guys. I'll prove it. You're not going to destroy anything. Coil, condenser. I'm just laying it off to the side for now. Yeah, that was definitely a problem. Yeah, someone has definitely been in here before. You can see, guys, that the gaskets are broke up. This gasket's completely missing, so I know beyond a shadow of a doubt the homeowner had went through this engine, and that explains a lot of why the bolts were loose. Okay, so at this point I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the homeowner had been in here screwing around, didn't really know what he was doing, and he tried to put it back together, got frustrated, set it aside. Now, hopefully you guys can see that. I'm going to pull out the plunger so it doesn't get tossed away by accident. And I'm wanting to show you guys the piston, how the homeowner had actually cleaned it and decarboned it. As you guys can see, I did not do this. Okay, I want you guys to know that. You can also see that there's definitely an issue with that exhaust valve, so I'm definitely going to be addressing that. Intake doesn't look too bad, but naturally I'm going to cut the seats and, as I said, grind the valves. So until the next video, YouTubers.